coming out of the pressure on this one. Out of the prisons on this one. I know the pressure on this one. It's kinda high, I ain't gonna lie, but we coming out of anxiety. Sick and tired of hiding. Good God Almighty, you didn't die, so we could have anything less than more life. More life. Yeah. More life to my thing. More life to my thing.
Shopping assistance. Your style, your budget. Our services include online and local shopping for individuals and businesses, personal shopping, purchasing of company and office supplies, importing and exporting small packages across Jamaica and worldwide, and helping you find unique gifts and items for all events and occasions. Contact us at 876-919-5195 or shoppingassistance2015@gmail.com. Shopping Assistance, your style, your budget.
If you're ready to build confidence, strengthen your self-worth, and create healthier relationships, you're in the right place. I offer speaking engagements, coaching, and book design to help you grow from the inside out. Check out my books on Amazon and visit Linktree to book me or start your journey today. Now let's dive in. This is where confidence meets clarity. Welcome back to the Unfiltered by Jade. Today we have with us here a special guest. His name is Phillip Hogan, and he is an author, a speaker, a podcaster, and the CEO of Signing Services of America and a philanthropist. Hello, Phillip. How are you?
I'm good, Jade. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you so much for being here. So today we're going to be speaking about your book, Relentless Excellence. Can you tell us how is it that you came by this name?
Sure. Well, when I was writing the book and, looking about titles, thinking about titles, it kind of like really popped up because in looking throughout the book, what was a consistent theme that always showed up in each chapter, in paragraphs, maybe even wording, and it was just relentless excellence.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really how the name was born. And then, of course, the subtitle, it's really about where I saw relentless excellence in my family and in the business that we built and also throughout my life. And so that's how I came up with the title Relentless Excellence.
Lovely. Lovely. All right. So we're going to jump into it, right? And I realize this topic here, number one, that I'm going to talk about, or we're going to talk about, is really throughout the entire book. And that is lead a life of excellence. Can you give us a little bit about that, please?
Sure. I'm a third generation entrepreneur. My grandparents are immigrants. My parental grandparents are immigrants from Montserrat. My grandmother was the pioneer for members of the family to come to settle into New York, particularly Harlem. And that was my first experiences. And then I saw my grandmother really build and become a head chef in the New York City school system. And then on my mother's side, my maternal grandmother was, may she rest in peace, the bishop of her church. And her church was over on the east side on 126th Street and Park Avenue. And so these ladies kind of like really set the template, really, if you will, for not only becoming a business owner, but relentless excellence, right? Everything that they did, it was done to the max. And when I say to the max, meaning that they poured into themselves whatever their projects were until they were satisfied with the outcomes of the project. And that was the foundation for my father's generation and then, of course, my generation.
Nice. Love that. We're going to talk about foundation for leadership. What exactly is the foundation for leadership? Is there a specific way to go to be a leader? What? Give us some background on that, please.
Sure. I think the foundation for leadership really begins with you and how you handle things within your life. You can't lead someone until you have really passed the test to become a leader in your life. And so relentless excellence, it ties into that because, again, I saw my family establish their goals. pursue their goals and achieve their goals and move on. And I saw, and that was expected of my siblings and I and my cousins. It was like there was just no room for shortfalls. And as we spoke pre-show, you're Jamaican, and I respect that. Growing up in the West Indies, it's in the Caribbean. It's certain standards that you must achieve. You don't have any options here, right? It's like this is the way. This is the path. You don't deviate from the path. And so, because I didn't deviate from the path, the leadership seeds, if you will, were planted and nurtured. And so, as I moved through my career, it was just a matter of constantly implementing what had been nurtured, and as a result, I became a really great leader. And I think what I should say here is that really what makes a good leader, right? It's kind of like understanding, what it is, the task that you have to accomplish, yes, but also understanding the people that's working for you, and how to get those people to push themselves. And you don't push, and the successes that I've had in all of my businesses hasn't been by just slaving, standing over someone with a figuratively speaking, a stick and beating upside the head. No, is that I think a good leader inspires their excellence of their staff, and inspires your staff to be creative. You can offer your staff the opportunity to be creative, and then help them to see what they've created and the benefit of what they've created in the company that they work for, which is yours. And so those are my examples of implementing leadership and the outcomes of great leadership.
Awesome. And if it is that we do implement certain things first and foremost in our life, there cannot be a great outcome. And for people to emulate what they are seeing, or for people to respect you as a leader, they need to see certain qualities that you present to them.
In school, one of the things that I learned about is the tower of power in organizations. And, it was a very good discussion, because there are some companies where, the communication comes top down, and meaning that the top, managers or owners or leaders are, have policies, procedures, systems that they want implemented, and they're not concerned with what a person or what the actual lower levels of that tower feel, think, or have to say. And then you have another diagram where the flow of communication goes both ways. You have it coming from top down, and then you have it coming from the bottom up. And that's how I run my companies, where the communication flows throughout the company. And as a result, I have really been able to have great working experiences with my staff, all of my companies, and the longevity and the productivity of these people has been impeccable because of the ability to be able to communicate. I used to work for the New York City Health and Hospital Corporation in Brooklyn, and I had a mentor. His name was Mr. Stemler, and Mr. Stemler said to me, Mr. Hogan, you got a lot of different people that show up to work, but the two styles that I've seen the most is that some people show up, some people shut up to show up, and some people will talk to show up, and you decide how you want to be. And he says the people who shut up to show up are very dissatisfied, because their inner thoughts they're afraid or cannot share their inner thoughts. And so therefore they suppress that. And that's living an inner authentic life.
Sounds good. What is a collaborative culture?
Sure. Well, when at Signing Services of America, and if you would read my book, if your audience is willing to take this show and says, that gentleman sounds really interesting, and his book sounds even more intriguing. And the name of the book is Relentless Excellence, a story of family, business building, and value-driven leadership. It can be found on Amazon. And also you can read an excerpt of the book on my website, which is www.philiphogan.com. That's www.philiphogan. And so collaborative culture is when what I believe and what I've been able to manifest in the two businesses that I've established, and in the businesses that my families have created, is when you have employees that become a part of the ecosystem of the company. They're not bystanders, right? They're actually involved in the making of systems, whatever those systems are. If you're producing a product, then there's a system for producing that product. And employees, when I say involved, they're not just manually involved, but they're cognitively involved. And that's where you can really see the joy is that with Signing Services of America, my senior loan scheduler is a very brilliant woman. And I thought that she was just not using all of her talent. So I assigned her some projects. And, it's just really interesting to see when she first started, she produced good quality projects, but 2 or 3 weeks later, these projects are immaculate. I'm blown away. And I share that with her, and I share it, that's because, you've gotten positive feedback. I've acknowledged her, the good and the bad, but I've given her the freedom to create what she thought it should look.
Yes.
And as a result, she's done a wonderful job. So internally, that's the collaborative culture. In regard to the collaborators that my company works with, it's just very clear that each side has their responsibilities. And as long as both sides are willing to complete their responsibility, then the collaboration can be successful. It's unsuccessful when people or someone or a systems aren't willing to do what is designed to do, and thus needs are not being met. And when that doesn't happen, people get frustrated and then they start looking elsewhere.
Yes, and I'm happy that you even brought up that, because there are many times there are owners of businesses, leaders, there are persons that work under them. They are not so privy to be able to go into the space with the leaders or the owners of the businesses to have conversations with them and to hear feedback, positive feedback, right? And even speak about challenges that they're having in their organizations. And it makes workers or employees, it makes them more timid or not want to go and have these conversations, which also affects organizations. And it affects collaborative culture. So I'm happy that you pinpointed that, and even you can see, she's brilliant. There are many times that people feel that they can't tell their workers that, but the truth is, if it is that you're the only brilliant person in your workplace, it will show.
It's about, again, the name of my book is Relentless Excellence, a story of family, business building, and value-driven leadership. And, one of the lessons that I learned from my father, and it was, Philip, you take care of your people will take care of your business. And what he was saying, what he meant is that your employees are your most important
valuable assets.
Assets, yes. And if you if you devalue those assets, then they will destroy your business.
Yes.
But if you value those assets, they will help your business flourish.
Yes.
And he was right.
It's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. It all starts from the head straight down. Mm-hmm. So that's a great point that your father even made. Let's talk about team building and disruption.
Sure. So I don't want to give the book away, but there was a experience that my company, Signing Services of America, which is still in business and has been in business since 2016. And we provide a service of reallocating time back to our clients. And the way we do that is hiring our notaries we schedule various kind of real estate signings for our clients. And we also manage the signage, and signage could be notaries or signing attorneys. Whomever they are, it's our responsibility to manage those individuals until the assignment is complete. And then we move on to the next account or the next order. And that's just a repetitious process. And so being a disruptor came up where I wasn't expected that to happen. As a matter of fact, I was completely, set aback. But we had to, in Georgia, we had to all required to work remotely. And so as a result, it's something that I had not done, hadn't contemplated doing, was unprepared to do. However, if I didn't do it, then my clients, I would have been a poor collaborator, and then my staff would have ultimately had to find another job. So we all devised a plan. We, not me to them, but we devised a plan as to how we were going to be this disruptor. And when we agreed upon the terms of the plan, we all went about to execute it, and we executed flawlessly.
Nice.
And it was one of the most rewarding moments in the 10 years that I've been in business, because had we not done that, had we not made that pivot, then we would not be in business today. We would have lost our business, we would have lost our clients, we would have lost our reputation, and it would have been so devastating. We would not been able to get from underneath it. So sometimes in business, you you have to make these hard to stop. You have to make these hard
Yes.
stops, hard left,
Yes.
hard right, hard stop. It's required. And if you are patient enough to realize that it needs to be done and then do it, and then look back and see what you've accomplished, then you have a great appreciation for it. And
Yes.
so that's my experience and my testimony about being, collaborative culture and being a disruptor.
I like that. I like that, Philip. The mere fact that you're able to say, you know what, we came together, brainstormed,
Mhm.
and came up with a plan that absolutely worked
Flawlessly.
flawlessly.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. It was, oh my gosh, it was a work of art. It really was. And it's one of the most, I think it's the highest point that I look at of success. You measure success in different ways. Some people measure it by, how much money they have in the bank. Some people measure it by how long you've been in business. Some people measure it by how many employees you have. Well, I measure success by those as well. But I also look at, well, what have we accomplished? Right? What have we, and the employees at the time, as a result of that move, we were pretty close then, but afterwards, oh my gosh, it was a bond that still goes on today.
Love that.
Yeah.
And that's so important. I want you to tell persons who are listening, what is important, or what have you learned over the years to be relentless, to have the kind of excellence that you desire?
Well, say what you mean and mean what you say, and we chuckle, but your employees are listening to you and they're also watching you. And after a point in time, they're going to, you go down the road a little bit and they're going to say, well, he said this and he said that. And, we didn't say this and we didn't say that. And then we're not seeing, any change.
Right.
And so the biggest morale killer is, not saying what you mean and mean what you say to your employees. And because your employees need to know that they can trust you. They really do. Right. And there's another incident that happened. I'm not going to tell people about the book, but I really encourage you to read it because it's a fascinating story and everything is a fact. But there was a situation that happened where the employees were expected to be compensated for their pay, and something happened, and so I had to think fast, and in order for these people to not lose hope in me or lose faith in me. And I did what I needed to do. And they were very, very appreciative, very appreciative. And because a few of them said, Philip, no one has ever done anything like this for us. Nice. I said, well, you haven't worked for anybody, but you haven't worked for a person like Philip. But like my father said, you take care of your people are going to take care of you.
Yep. Right? And that's a true statement. It's a true statement. I am thankful that you even spoke about this and the importance of it. It's not even just relentless excellence, but is being relentless in how we treat our employers or employees with excellence.
Relentless excellence has become a way of life for me, and it's not only in business, in school. You mentioned in the introduction that I have a master's in social work from Columbia and a master's in public administration from American Public University, and there's only one. I only see one way of doing things, right? And that goes back to my grandparents. That goes back to my parents. My parents were entrepreneurs, and I grew up in a household where my mother and father were entrepreneurs. And it's kind of like it's uncommon where both husband and wife, mother and father are entrepreneurs. Maybe the father, maybe the mother, but not both.
Right.
And so because of that, I saw how they sacrificed what was needed to accomplish their goals. And we were expected to do the same. And so, relentless excellence started there. And then going into the military, it's the same thing. It was no different. This is what we need you to do. And we need you to do it this way, not your way, but this way. And then if you want to add a little more onto it, then that's fine. And so in school is the same thing. In sports, I am a former bicycle racer, and in sports, it was the same thing. Is okay, how can I be excellent at this? Well, the formula had already been birthed in me and nurtured, right? So I didn't have to find out, okay, how do I be excellent? It was just a matter of, applying what I've learned and applying what I've learned and seeing the results in other areas of my life and just carrying over into this new area. It's like, and what I think what really gets me going is I don't stop until I'm satisfied.
That's right.
I don't wait for someone else to tell me, okay, good job, you can stop there. No, I keep going until I'm satisfied, until it looks, it tastes just the way I
Right.
want
You
it.
want it?
Then that's it. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And so, and as I've gotten older, I've kind of like really patented that this is how it is. And sometimes it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Sometimes I want to tell myself, man, why don't you go sit down someplace?
Yeah.
You know, but I can't do that. So that's how that is.
He said he can't do that.
No, I can't. No, I'm not happy. I'm not. I know. I'm just, it just, because you have in your mind, you have the outcome, but yet, whatever project you're working on doesn't match what's in your mind. So what am I supposed to do?
Got you.
No,
You have to continue going to get what you desire.
Absolutely. I mean, you from the Caribbean, you know.
Well, and the truth is, I'm Nigerian also, so I'm Nigerian Jamaican, so I understand what it is to
You got to double. You got to.
exactly right. So I am a person also who doesn't stop until I get what I want. I see it in my head, the vision.
Yes.
I won't stop until it comes to life. What I've learned over the years, though, is that sometimes I have to take a step back to get to where I want to be. And it's because sometimes when we keep on going and going without stopping, sometimes we exhaust ourselves. And sometimes our brains become so tired that what is supposed to come to us naturally is not able to, because our brains are so tired and we're so exhausted and we need a reset. So sometimes resetting is imperative for us to even get to the excellence that we desire.
I agree. And I also agree that you reset and then eventually you get back up and you get at it.
Of course. Yes.
Right. And so that's we're both at the same place. The process is the same, right? Is that, yeah, you could take a break. Yeah, you could,
but you're going to get back up and do what you need to do.
You better.
You better. We can't just lay down. No. We got to get back up.
No. And I think that, it's got me in trouble in my personal relationships and with friendships and as well as business, because I just want the best outcome possible. And the best outcome possible is what I've envisioned. And so there are people in my life who don't have that aspiration. And therefore there's become a slight separation. And they look at me and say, that guy up there, he's kind of weird, man.
I mean, it's not weird. I think the thing, Philip, is that environment changes us. Environment kind of mold our self-worth, how we see ourselves, how we perceive life. So because your family in its entirety were entrepreneurs and they aimed to get to a certain place of excellence, that's the environment you grew up in. So that's what you saw. There are people out there who have not been in that kind of environment. So their pathway and their perspective is different. So it's even learning to appreciate the different perspectives and also come to the realization that, okay, we may not align and that's okay. We may have had a friendship based on one thing, but our alignment is totally different and it's okay.
I agree with you so much, Jade. And that word alignment is so powerful, right? Because when there's misalignment, then, then what should be done, what can be done, is not going to be completed because you may not have the right attitudes, the right energy, right perspective, or the right individuals that's involved to make it happen. And so I think that, not only alignment with other people, but we have to be aligned within ourselves.
That's right.
Right. We have to spend time with ourselves, searching who we are. What is it that we want to aspire to be? And I'm not saying, in terms of employment or sports or education, but we have to spend that time to really learn, what makes us go and why, and then be willing to ask the question.
Why? And sit in that. Sit in why.
Yes. So silence is sometimes, you know what I mean? Because a lot of questions could be asked and answered, but sometimes, nowadays, it's just that some people overlook those important moments, and therefore they spend many, many years misaligned until something happens. You know what? Oprah Winfrey said something, and she said, and it stayed with me. And she says, you got to learn to get out of your own way. You got to stop blocking God's blessings. And I was young, and I thought about that. Stop blocking God's blessings. What does she mean by that? Well, when I dug deeper, what she was implying is that we as humans want what we want, and thus we go after it. But that's not what God wants for you. And that because you're so busy pursuing what you want, you're blocking the blessings that God has given you because you're not acknowledging that, well, what you want is really not really what you need. And so if you were to so I had to be silent. I had to spend some time with myself. I had to, and it was uncomfortable, but it was a moment of, it was the beginning of a transformation by being silent, being still, not talking, not running around, not chasing this or chasing that or pushing this or pushing that, but just being in the moment and allowing my inner self to just grow and allow the voice to get louder and louder. And now at this point in my life, I hear it and I respond to it because I had that time to spend with myself and listen to that voice and own it and give it its opportunity to speak to me and trust that what it says to me, I have to act on.
Yes. Yeah. And you talk about silence being uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable because we generally don't like to sit with our own thoughts because that means we have to challenge ourselves with our thoughts or feelings. We're going to have to process our emotions, patterns that we have going on. We have to explore or expand our past experiences, and we have to probably facilitate self-awareness. And people don't want to do those things because it means that, okay, now I'm going to have to look in the mirror. And looking in the mirror can be also saying, am I in this business because it was my family's desire, or am I in this business because it's something I want to be in? So exploring those narratives while sitting down in silence does help us in the trajectory of where we are to be in, and also to have a connection with God. For those who are Christians like myself, I have that connection where I sit in silence and wait, be still and hear what God is saying. Yeah, quite important. Yeah. So Phillip, thank you so much for coming and sharing about your book, and even giving us some information about what it is to build relentless excellence. We do appreciate you, and I thank you. And I want to say thank you so much again to my listeners for listening to the Unfiltered by Jade. And we will be back next week, Tuesday. Thank you.
We coming out of the pressure on this one, out of the prisons on this one. I know the pressure on this one, it's kinda high, I ain't gonna lie, but we coming out of anxiety. Sick and tired of hiding. Good God Almighty, you didn't die, so we could have anything less than more life. More life, yeah. More life to my thing, more life to my thing. Staying clear of low vibrational folks, bro. I want no parts of that low vibe you might bring. Yeah. Love the Lord with all your heart, God, your heart not fall apart. Certainly, just understand that hurt people, no such thing as perfect people. Sometimes long distance love is all you can give to certain people. If they don't know that your presence is a gift, absence might be the appropriate response. Fresh out of emotional attention, fresh out. You will not get close enough, won't let me stress out. If I don't go stoic, you gon' let me crash out. Yeah. We coming out of the pressure on this one, out of the prisons on this one.